that yes, we are mad. Yes, what we are trying has a high degree of chance of failure. फिर भी करेगा क्या? There are fashion planners and there are fashion planners. Gratitude plus aptitude makes fantastic entrepreneurs, is what I believe. So we
Yeah,
don't mind being stupid and not making money. It was not the end of the world for us. We hardly expected anything, but we had to solve the problem.
hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Ideas to Enterprises, a podcast where we try to answer the question, how do you go from an idea to an enterprise? I'm super excited about today's guest. Sandipan Chattopadhyay, or as he's lovingly known in the startup ecosystem, Sandy, is one of the most fascinating people you'll come across. He's also fascinating because I feel he's truly one of India's unsung heroes in our startup ecosystem. In our conversation, I hope you'll get the sense that I did, that he represents the different phases of our ecosystem, right from its early days, where he built, for example, tablets with the West Bengal government when Palm Pilots weren't even a thing globally, to working alongside Ratan Tata and the Tata Interactive team, setting up their first few innovative and online missions, to building brands that are used and loved by millions. There's MoneyControl, which went on to get acquired. There's JustDial, which everyone knows that went on to get listed. One of early bets of Tiger back then when Elevation was called Ceph. Sequoia was in that cap table. So very fascinating stories from those days. And now the future, where he's building Xelpmoc, which is a fantastic company building technology businesses. I really had a blast, and I hope you will enjoy this too. With this, I give you Sandy. Sandipan, thank you so much for taking the time to come onto the podcast. We're very excited to have you. The team has been buzzing for the last week. So, really excited to have you for the next couple of hours here.
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll carry on with our usual conversations. And I hope I'll not say some foot in the mouth statement I have to regret later. You know me. So
Well,
let's hope on that part.
will we charge a 10 rupee editing fee?
All right.
Sandy, you're in your family, there have been entrepreneurs, there have been renowned economists. There has been a heady intellectualism around your journey. So tell me a little bit. Let's start right from the start. Tell me about how these individuals have shaped your philosophy and your journey from a young age to where you are now.
I guess one of the biggest factors in my life have been my grandfather and my teachers. They probably have set the idealistic note. And as you said, my uncles or my father, who you talked of as an entrepreneur and economist and all, they became benchmarks. But the principles were formed at a very early age. I guess it's the imprinting time when it's happening. And all of them are, see, you must understand the time frame. I started getting to school in 78. Most of these are people who were born just around independence, who were my teachers. My grandfather was a freedom fighter. So all those aspects, I think a lot of heady part that, and I was in Bengal of all places, right after the Naxal movement, I was born. So all these things led to that entire fact of having a lot of pride in being Indian and doing for India. And my grandfather was a contrarian, and so were a lot of my teachers. They used to not look very kindly to people who were just leaving the country and going overseas for some better opportunities. They used to talk that yeah, young people who are high caliber should stay back and rebuild the country. And I think somewhere that kept on with me. I never realized it, but now that I look back in retrospect, I think those were the formative pieces which made me go on a path of this sort of a thing. And again, my becoming an entrepreneur was more of a reluctant choice. I knew a particular thing had to be done. I had to do it. I was looking for people who were doing it and I would join them. There was no one, so I had to start. I guess it's a very similar story for my father, and mostly that aspect also has to be kept in mind. So I'm not like a someone who was dying to be an entrepreneur, but solving a problem was always something I was dying to do, and that led to becoming an entrepreneur, not the other way around.
I think picking that thread of being a contrarian, you went to two institutes of repute, right? You went to two major places. You went to ISI and then there was IIM. At that point in time, you could have gone literally anywhere, but you did something contrarian. You went and joined a small company. That itself, I think, might have set the tone for that. So could you tell us a little bit more about that? Could you tell us a little bit more about Dias Infotech? Why did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would step a bit back because it's a build-up. So the first thing I did when I was taking my class 11 optionals, I discarded biology so that my family or anyone can't push me into becoming a doctor. Because at that time, you either become an engineer or a doctor. I had no idea of ISI at 11, but I had taken statistics because some of the subjects seemed interesting in my class 11 instead of biology, right? Um, and then through some perchance and all, one person who was supposed to instruct me as a tutor in statistics was connected to someone who was studying at ISI. And of all weird things, that guy bought my entry form and told me, you must sit for this exam. So I actually had made it into Jadavpur. I had made it into some of the lower rank in IITs and all. And that was the first contrarian step I took. I didn't go the beaten path and I went to study maths because I really felt after the interview in the ISI that this was something I really loved doing. And much to the reluctance and reluctant acceptance of my parents to some fights and all also, I did end up in ISI. IIM was a kind of an Hobson's choice because I was there was some sort of a upheaval and I was not sure that I can stick to an academic career, which was my earlier notion that I would be an academic. But there were things happening in and around me, which I thought I should get something which makes me fit for getting a good job. By the time I was in second year of IIM, those problems had sort of vanished. Things and were there, and I also was not enjoying management. So what it made me do was pass the exam somehow. Don't go to the classes I didn't like. But that time I spent in the lab learning and teaching myself what was coming up at that time, internet. It was not at all there. I'm talking of 96, 95, 96, right? TCP/IP had just come. I was one of the testers of the phone line modem, that peepa kind of a connecting thing. And it was not a shell. There were pictures coming. So it was a wondrous world. And something made me feel that this is probably where we will be at par with the world. The history will not matter. What we think, what we do, that will bring us at par to the world. And I will do this. That was the first thing. So yes, I walked out of the campus offer, which was pretty good. In those days, a hunky-dory salary, IIMs do get that privilege and all. And I joined DIAS because DIAS was a joint venture between West Bengal Electronics Available, which is there, a private entrepreneur, and MIT Media Labs. And in those days, I mean, you cannot probably appreciate the kind of weirdness this may sound. In those days, it will sound. We were working on a touchscreen based kiosk, which would help people choose the color they want to paint their walls. And this used to take care of all shading, all sorts of angles, keep the entire thing perfectly okay, and do this runtime. So, and why I was chosen for the job and I loved the job was this was actually deep mathematics. It was not taking an area and doing it. It was like, remember, this is pre-Photoshop areas where all those Phong effects and all those things were not there. So we are literally doing like burning the ocean to get those solutions and all. Now, why I took that was because it sounded challenging. It sounded completely contrarian to what everyone else expected. There was a huge risk-return ratio accessible. If we could crack it, we would feel on top of the world, but there was a huge risk of not being able to crack it. That is what drove me there. Again, as I said, the entrepreneurial spirit probably was there, but I was not yet sure that I want to be an entrepreneur.
In what sounds like it's going to be a bit of a pattern, I think it'll be interesting for us to understand or just put a stake in sand and time and say, okay, what year was it that you were working on a touchscreen technology that allowed people
96.
So we're talking about 1996. This is before before Palm Pilot. This is before
all those. Yeah.
Rise of the different.
And remember, these were those crystal screen overlays on monitors, which had a pseudo-static kind of a static electricity thing. These are not all of this passive matrix and all those electronics were not there at that time. I mean, they were just in the R&D labs coming out.
I think that is something that's phenomenal to figure out that in 96 we're talking about a touchscreen thing done by West Bengal government.
But remember, that is what you entered. Remember, one of the considerations I said was it was having a collaboration with MIT Media Labs. So I didn't know that I'll be working on a touchscreen, but I did know that this will give me to work with literally the cutting edge of technology. And that intuition was correct. Now, it could have been a touchscreen, it could have been a robotic arm, I don't know. But I knew that it will be something very novel.
I think one of the things a lot of your peers told me to talk to you about, and it kind of stems from what you mentioned, this love, this deep love for mathematics. I was told that around that time you started buying and reading Russian literature to read more about maths and learn maths. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I forgot to mention is I'm from a vernacular school. So most of the English novels or Russian novels I read were actually Bengali translations. And you only read the classics because that was there in your family bookcases. Your friend circle doesn't read the contemporary English books. It was at ISI where the normal language was English. My peers, my classmates, my professors. It was not a Bengali medium college, right? So that's when I first got introduced into this novels and all. And Asimov, luckily, was one of the first novels I started reading in English. I had never read a Bengali version of Asimov. And it was a prescribed book for my senior because you're a statistician. Read this novel, it's actually about statistics. And I was wondering, how can someone write a book about statistics or novel? That got the interest. And similarly, Carl Sagan. These were the two things, Contact and all. Contact, actually, I had read somewhere in class 11, 12. I had a good friend with whom I was discussing. And that got a lot of interest into mathematical terms which were not usually taught. Transcendental numbers, infinite series, Banach transformations, spaces. So these were just jargon, but they did seed me with that interest on doing that. And as we were going across examples of three-dimensional part, Escher's pictures, everything seemed to have a mathematical theme. So I was not only reading novels, I was reading mathematical treatises, inspirations, paintings, people who thought a Da Vinci revisited with a new insight of mathematics, and then able to appreciate that what the hell, this guy thought of these things at that time, combining physics, statistics, everything together and coming up with postulates. So yes, it was a varied interest, and I was literally trying to find myself. When you take a contrarian decisions, you want to revalidate to yourself that you have done the right choice. And then statistics being the choice, you wanted to say, oh, statistics can be used for this, statistics can be used for that. But inadvertently, what it did was it also set in motion, and Asimov is the big thing, that finally I decided my ideal character is now Harry Seldon, a fictional character who builds a model for predicting things, and I want to do that in real life. Can I do it?
I like that. I think I'd like to go just one level deeper there. It sparks my curiosity. A lot of us in our early careers, in our early journeys, we've got a goal in mind. I want to get a job at McKinsey. I want to start a tech startup. I want to get an investment bank. And then I center my learning around a particular subject, right? And it sounds like you've taken this couple of disparate subjects and it somehow helped you in your journey, or given you something over and above the typical route of learning, right? So how did that help? Is that something you even recommend, that we start studying disparate and different types of knowledge and literature to guide our career journeys?
See, I wish I could tell you I was very mature to understand it will somehow add up one day, but that was not the case. I guess a very fundamental quality or aspect or wanting in me is what led to all of it. I had a very disparate friend group. Some were singers, some were artists, some were writers, some were studying biology, some were becoming doctors. My school friends I was very close to. And their varied interest and my faith in the fact that if he's saying it, it must be of something good. I guess that's what led to me becoming such a hodgepodge and yet having that path. But what ISI did to me was discipline me about not over going onto that path. So yes, I was dabbling into all of these things, but there was kind of like a portfolio management where, because of the academic pressure and intensity of let's say ISI, I had to make sure that 80% of my time is going into academics because I have to pass the exams. You fail an exam, you're chucked out of the institute. I can't afford that. And whatever remained in the 20%, I was trying to greedily suck up everything that came my way, especially from people I admired. So, Zaran, yes, we can say all these things, but finally, if you really look at it, it's the kind of people you surround yourself with, which literally lifts you up onto that part, and your faith in them. What I was good, and I think that's one thing, is that I don't see people as functions. In the sense, I don't see that, oh, he's a doctor, he's a thing. He's a friend first. He does a profession of doctorate, and he's a bright guy. I know him from childhood. If he's finds something interesting in that field, I want to learn at least what is interesting. So it is that inherent nation of the puzzle he used to give in class 7. He's again talking about a puzzle and I want to solve it. So I guess it's that friendly competitiveness and the fact that, oh, if you do it, I'll also do it kind of an attitude, which literally leads you on. And then you meet people who you look up to, your professors, your teachers, luminaries. And then you see that, oh my God, this guy is a South Indian and he's talking about Bengal literature at a depth I didn't understand. Why don't I know so much about Tamil literature? And then you ask him, what is the Tamil literature you like? And he says, oh, you must read this, you must read. And you take the effort to do it. Again, it's people. You want to become like someone or you want a part of someone and want to copy that. So in a way, it's emulation and following what you admire and also curiosity. That you're curious about why is this person saying that is good? There must be something. So I guess it's a function of that. Then you form a natural liking for it. Like once you get a book, your curiosity takes over. Then you're not reading because Jashwant told you to read it and it's a great start. Then you're reading because what is happening in the next book? What is Asimov cooking up? And finally, you try to predict that, oh, I think it'll happen there. And then in the fourth book, when you thought about that he is going to go there in the second book, you feel, okay, I am as good as Asimov. I guess that literally is very kiddish, but it's also what keeps your curiosity and inquisitiveness and hence innovation alive. That is very important to have fun. Yeah. Really being able to play and think, can I outthink this person? Can I beat him at his own game? And you don't need to really compete with the guy. You're doing it in your own head. And that literally transforms you because then you are trying to think like 1,000 people who you admire and you are doing multifaceted part and you don't know how the brain works. It starts auto-linking and you get inspiration. And so many times I have taken there is this description of the second foundation's control room where there are graphs and charts and people can look at it and understand how the world is moving. That was my ambition when I started doing the market map for MoneyControl. Can I give that look for the market? Did they say there were bar graphs with advances and declines? No. I had to figure that out in the context. But I knew that a progression report, which is real time, is important to people. So you never know what triggers what. And that I realized very early. Because I started realizing my friends from music are actually accentuating my interest in physics. And the friends from physics would say, oh, music is really good. It's actually maths. Telling me about maths being good. So people are cross-cultural. And if you admire someone and get their cross-culture points, and you observe a lot of people and know, oh, these are the moral cross-culture points, you focus on that, you essentially get interesting stuff. I made a very long-winded answer, I know, but this is a complicated subject. I wanted to tell that, so there's no ambiguity in how it came about. So it was not conscious, but once it started giving results, I actively pursued.
I think when I hear this, I'm reminded of what Steve Jobs said, right? Which is you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And the best you can do, and what I'm learning from you is just drop lots of dots and also in turn meet lots of people and something fantastic will connect.
Yes. And again, remember that this has a spirit of be willing to make errors. You are reading because that guy told you it may be a bullshit. It may be a bad, we're on podcast, right? It may be a completely bad thing, but you take the risk. Because one thing is there that only a failure can teach you things mostly. It's the best teacher, a failure. You fail to read something or you don't like that, you form a bias which is going to help you save time later on. Gotcha. Right? So, keeping to that spirit of you can connect the dots in posterity, but how do you expose yourself to dots?
Exactly.
That is exactly the point of discovery and being open-minded. I will discover a dot. Now, I may cross the dot or I may tick it, doesn't matter. But first is get a dot, get onto it. Then you can do all the back calculation, forward calculation, postulation. But where is your chance to yourself to get a learning experience? That is very important.
I think picking up on another dot in your journey, and an important one, I'd say, is your time at Tata. My first job was at Tata, but I worked with a very different group there. You worked with another individual that everybody has heard of. So could you tell us a little bit about when you first met Ratan Tata? Can you tell us about that story of working on TIS and how that evolved? And just give us a flavor of what life was back then when Tata was discovering this wonderful thing called technology.
So my introduction to him was accidental. I was one of the flunkies working on Tata.com, and I happened to have an opinion, which he was gracious enough to listen to, though I was a junior most guy in the team. And the site came out well. He was very, very honest, and he called the team, thanked them. He was a gentleman, right? And perchance, it also happened that by that time, some projects had succeeded. So I was deputed to Bombay House, where I had the chance to again sit in a meeting with him. And I was very surprised that he remembered me. Now, this is 6 months. He's a big guy remembering me, who's almost a small fry in a smallest pond of his empire, was quite good. And then there was an office person, Mr. Santoop, who used to do it. And we were trying, and I was on deputation from TIS to make something combined. That was a vision. It never came to life. That can we have a Tata box where power, because Tata Power was there in Hyderabad at that time. Tata Telephones was there. Internet was coming, not VSNL. VSNL was not yet Tata's. And there were many other amenities. Can we give that part? Can we give access to all the Tata properties to that? Can we have a Tata loyalty scheme? It's a big organization, takes time. I see that dream that we had in 97-ish coming to fruition now with Tata New and all, and still not fully there. What was planned and all. Execution is big. I never had I was stupid enough and young enough to think, oh, why is it taking so much time? I didn't have the experience. The main thing I understand and I remember from that part is powerful interactions. I may have hardly met him few times, but the fact that he remembered made me feel important and made me feel that I had contributed. That's why I had remembered. I don't only attribute it to its greatness, I also think that I add value. And that became the first postulate, that add value to conversations you have with people, they will remember. I think that has helped. Second was humility. Utmost humility and humanism grown together. He always thought of the collective. He never thought of individual. He never had that aspect. That doesn't mean he didn't have an ego. But the ego was so aligned to his humanism. I'm not saying humanity.
Humanism.
But it was one and the same thing. And that humanism was primarily very India focused. Now, remember what I told you about my grandfather setting up that stone of doing for India. So today I feel someone resonates with me because I'm old. At that time, I felt that, oh, I am resonating with him and he is the main focus. And that made me feel very good and on the right track. So that meeting infused a lot of confidence in me. And I was lucky onto that part. But I also believe I deserved some part. So it was not that I was hankering and like a fan. I believed I was adding value. So I was more keen to add more value for every meeting I was having. So it made me work much harder, knowing that I'm going to have a 15-minute window of opportunity of being in a meeting with him. I worked much harder to say that if I get the chance, these are the possible things that may be brought out. And at this point, I can intervene this way and add value. I was not trying to impress. I was actually trying to add value. So I think that is a big change, that interaction. And it was simultaneously happening with a lot of people. That was one thing that happens and it is known, but I met a lot of people from Amphi, from stock markets, from the world of investing. That's how I got interested into this part. In fact, one project that I was doing for finance industry in Barclays in UK is what led to being introduced to a person who later on moved to IDBI in India. And then I got interested in the Indian ecosystem. So it was a question of getting exposure. Every one of us in the first 2 years post-college, when we joined work, actually get millions of these opportunities. I think I was lucky enough that it was impactful interactions and some of those opportunities flourished into great relationships. So I guess that way I was lucky, or maybe I was working hard for it. That I'm not sure. But I think it's always a mixture of the two.
Sandipan, we've got two very famous different levers on that TIS time, right? So one was meeting Ratan Tata and learning humility, and the other was your own contrarian behavior. There's famous stories of you refusing a company car and asking for a cycle. There's famous stories of you wanting the keys to the office, and then finally one member or one colleague telling you, stay mad. And that remained a very famous story throughout the few months of time that you were there.
About a year, yeah, about a year.
About a year that you were there, right? So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that quote. Tell us about those stories. I think it's fantastic and it'll be interesting for others to hear.
See, again, it was the first place I was really residing other than Kolkata. And I was in a multicultural melting pot of Bombay, firstly, and of Tata Interactive, which was, I was like the 20th employee or so. It was a small company, but growing very fast, right? And we were looking at it and all.
Mhm.
So work intensity was high. That's why I'd asked for the office keys, because I couldn't take it that I have to find the chokidar or he's not there at that time and I'm waiting till he comes. So I asked for the key. It was the most natural thing to do because I literally took it as my own house. And I didn't understand why anyone would have a problem in asking for the key of the company. The fact that there is protocol, the fact that they may think that I'll keep something away and go in the normal corporate culture, it was not in my head. I was actually quite a simpleton in these aspects and focused on that part. So, but I was given the key by the fine because it was a special thing on that.
Uh-huh.
I found getting the company car for a drop and I used to call it drag and drop because they used to come honk and you have to get out then. It hampered my freedom of movement because I had irregular hours. I was not like looking for a 9 to 5 job. For them, the car pickup and drop is a great service. For me, I may go home at 12 o'clock in the night and next day I may have to come back at 4 o'clock in the morning again. Or one day I may stay till 3 o'clock in the morning and decide to come after 12 in noon. So what the hell will I do with a car and then coordinating with that guy? And this is a age when mobile was not so cheap. And the car and drivers never had mobiles in those days. How the hell do I coordinate and get that thing on the right time? Who do I talk to? So those were the reasons why I said that just give me a cycle because I live so close by. And anyway, I was going to get a shower in my friend's place. My own house was in Mulund and this was in Andheri. So I hardly ever went home except for to clean clothes. So that way the cycle was better. So these are stories blown out of proportion by well-wishers who want to mock me. I know that, but but I want to tell you one thing that I was not a professional. I did not think of work-life balance. I was enjoying my work too much because I had taken many things as challenges. The first project I was assigned to was almost a to-be-failed project. Somehow I had turned it around, and that gave a lot of confidence because the guy who was previously holding it, he didn't have time or whatever, but he was 20 years senior. And this project I was reviving. So that was a big high for me. Then I was doing it for one of the best people like the Unilever company. And through that became my exposure to go to Unilever, work for that in London and in all the places, go and work on something called mass markets, which went on to win the Biome Awards, Milia Awards. So it was a start of many things. We were in a new field. The entire multimedia domain itself was new. DAS was the first exposure. This was more focused because this was only on training. And it was about people development, but using technology which people had not thought before. So one good thing about projects at TIS was we were able to transform. So everyone came to us to digitalize what they were doing. But somehow we had this notion that we will digitize it. And what it means is that you have to treat this new force that is coming, be it the computer-based training, be it the internet, as a new medium. You cannot say whatever I'm doing in brochure pasting in real life in print, can I make an electronic version of it? Then there is no extraction of goodness that you're doing for the medium itself. So that was lucky. Now to do that, I know it's a very controversial statement. Stalwarts have been sort of hanged in public opinion for saying these things. I had no work-life balance. Work was my life was work. And that is the reason why the accelerated speed of learning, innovation, that maza, that kira, I think nothing can replace that. Everything that you hear is a symptom of that disease. It was not done to be a contrarian. I wanted to focus my contrarianism to the work. And these came as natural consequences as Jugaad solutions on doing that part. I'll tell you a story that, and how my office, my Tata is a very strict culture, but how the people of TAS officer, who was the CEO and all, started slowly accepting this new era. So I used to have, there was a TT room, there were bin bags, and sometimes I would be too tired, so I would just go and sack out in the bin bag. One day, I was shaken up by Sanjay Sharma, the CEO. Sandipan, wake up. And
Sorry, he was the CEO of what?
Tata Interactive Systems.
Okay, the CEO of Tata Interactive.
Yeah, Sanjay, big guy, very big guy in the Tata. He wakes, Sandipan. And then he said, this is Sandipan I was talking about. Go back to sleep. And he goes up. And later I learned that was the head of IBM visiting us and he wanted to showcase me as something I had done on the server setting. What was it? was setting up our own mail server using open source तो तब नहीं बोलते थे MIT license software on a Linux box, which was called a very fancy name, onto that. But it was the first version of Unix. And we had our own mails, which was internal. So we didn't have to pay for internal mails. And it was cheaper, faster. It was as fast as SMS. There was no waiting for the mail server, no waiting for internet connection, just acting on LAN. That's it. The fact that slowly you started accepting that no matter what you do, if your work is good, the other things don't matter.
Yeah.
I think by action and all, my colleagues, my seniors started doing it. Ashish Saxena, another person. Manoj Kutti, you met him. We still work with him. These guys somehow encouraged me to stay mad. And that supportive thing was possible because it was itself a startup. Now we call it a startup. At that time, it was a new business, which was looking into a new area. And they realized they needed mad people who can question the norms and think out of the box. So if this is the price of unnormative, uncorporate behavior they have to bear to have these sort of people workforce. It was not just me. There was a bunch of us who were doing it, but I started it. Yes, I was a rebel. But it became an accepted culture. So, I mean, the fact is that you have to look at it in the time context that we changed a lot of the things. Our generation was the harbinger of change because we were just placed at the right time and the right place. The day we passed our higher secondary exam, 4 or 5 days after that is when the Liberation Treaty was signed in 1991. And by the time we passed out, the initial hiccups and protests and all had died down, and people were getting down to business, and India was opening up, and we were the harbingers of the change. By the time I was job worthy in 96, 5 years had passed. People who had opened up opportunities in the US because of that policy, and there was no skill set people, so we had to learn everything on our own. So is it something driven? No, I think a lot of it, 90% of it is because the environment wanted me to be thus.
I think let's take that and let's look at it and plot it against the time scale. So 96, we're working on something revolutionary. We're building touchscreen devices in Bengal with MIT. We fast forward, we're leading TIS. TIS is about a year. And then what year is it that you come out and then that Kida comes in and says, I want to create something and eDot is born. So what year does that? Just give us a sense.
The sequence is wrong. So during working in TIS, this ad agencies, I should not name them, but one of the people who was working with me, Lindian, who now is in New York heading the same ad agencies, worldwide operations, his friend was Victor. And Victor and I got talking in a party at Lindian's place while working in TIS. And he started saying how Indians don't respect equity. And I chimed in with him and say, yes, we don't understand it. And he said the middle class doesn't get into it because they think it's race. It's like gambling. It's not. There's a science to it. You are a statistician, you would get it. I said, explain to me. How does it happen? And I actually went to his house a couple of weekends just to understand. And he and I liked exchanging. We liked each other in it. And then he started tempting me, saying that, we must do this. And I said, see, no, this is very nice. I want to learn more and do it. But what there's nuts. Then he said, no, I'm not talking of making a system. You think the web is the next future. Why don't we make a website for finance? And then he showed me Money Central. I saw Money Central. I did it. And I said, I want to do this. So I went and talked to TIS CEO and said, on weekends, I want to work on this project. And I think it'll improve India's thing. And I want to make this thing for financial tools onto that part. He said, yeah, okay. Then I realized that there were other things happening on my work I was not liking. There was too much marketing and all. It was just that, the innovation phase was over and now repetition to get sales and all were happening. And I was not enjoying that part of the work. And there was no new thing that was in the visibility. So then I decided that I wanted to change. I wanted to do R&D. So Sanjay and we were talking and I realized that it was always off time mein kar lo R&D, but main time mein you go to customers and meet them and be a marketing, which I didn't want to do.
Hmm.
Suddenly one day, out of the blue, Victor dropped in at my place at a very unearthly hour for him. He was a very proper gentleman at 8 o'clock in the morning and said, I couldn't sleep last night. I want to talk to you. You know, we have to do this. The tool we made got 6,000 views. So, guys, I know it's laughable today. 6,000 views in those days with an internet population of subscriber base of 50,000 was a big deal, right?
Was how much?
50,000 user base. Now, 6,000 is repeats. We didn't have the tools to know
That's
English like
10%
in
of the
India.
entire. Yeah, that's 10% of the
Yeah, but
entire.
it is likely that someone saw it 4 times, 5 times. So there was over calculation, but 6,000 was a big number.
Yeah.
I think we are sitting on an opportunity, and if we do it, it will be because of you and I not being able to do it. Let's regret doing it. And that's the favorite word I picked up from him. Let's regret doing it instead of regretting later not doing it.
Hmm.
Something snapped in my head and I said, okay, let's do it. So we started making it from part. I had people, I used to pay them. And when it came to the financial year end, my CA said, what have you done? You have paid these guys. What's the justification? What do I do? How do I fail your IT things? Who are you and all? And he said, how can you do this without forming a company? I said, okay, I'll form a company. And then I realized that there are other work also that is coming in and all those things and all. So I told Victor, and by that time, Infosys had gone public, right? That was a poster story of that, and I was emulated, and they had given ESOPs, employees got rich. I also wanted to do that. So I said, I don't want to do it in MoneyControl. We will make EDOT, but EDOT will own equity in that. And through that, we'll do it. So the Xelp model you see is not really very new. It is something I always wanted to do. I've just refined the model to make it more sustainable and more fair to me and to other people who are sincere. Because there were problems of people leaving and still holding equity and all, which I didn't know how to solve, which has got corrected. That's how EDOT started. MoneyControl had started before EDOT started. EDOT we formed so that we have a house for the people working on it and it's legitimate onto that part. Then EDOT wanted to do a lot of other fintech things which were not there.
Got it. And then EDOT, you guys did a lot of these things called foresight exercises. I found those to be quite fascinating. But before we get into those, I hope everybody listening in realizes that we just heard the origin story of MoneyControl, which today is one of the most used.
It is incomplete without Victor, because Victor was a mutual fund manager. He decided to not do that, left that, his fund got bought over just to do MoneyControl. So Victor, Sangeeta, the way they put in. But at the same time, I must say that I did support on the right way. I did live up to his trust. I don't know why he thought I was necessary for the part, but later on I understood that many of the innovations like the graphing and charting we did in low bandwidths with no graphing and charting, actually just image manipulation. Those were wonderful innovations of those times.
Absolutely. I think let's stay on this thread. You mentioned something, we've only 50,000 people, internet subscribers.
50.
Exactly, 50,000, right? We only 50,000. Capital markets themselves.
Not 15, 50.
Yeah, I'm saying 50. Is it
Okay,
coming?
okay. I thought 15. That was also not unlikely. It was quite low. The first TCP/IP account was only managed to 5,000 accounts. So we had restrictions and quotas in those days.
50,000 subscriber the. And at that stage, internet being so early, capital markets being so early, it could have been construed as the wrong time to do this, right? So you had that conviction, there was that gut feel, let's make it happen. But
it was conviction and observation.
Entertainment
and money-making things always want to give the best technology.
Yeah.
And information is always very important for these sectors.
Hmm.
So the fact that any new technology which has value will be lapped up by finance sector or entertainment sector, information sector, so to say, I call them clubbed together. Because I look at both of them, news, bolo, entertainment, bolo, and all these are information.
Right.
So this is infotainment sector. I think that I was very intuitively clear. By the way, there was a very strange course I had done at IIM in my last semester, which was technology obsolescence. And I realized nothing which is ever connected to the information systems ever go obsolete. They get upgraded. The things which are not connected to that, but are connected to the tactile, they're the ones who go through the obsolescence circle. What does get obsolete is anything slower gets obsolete. So way back in 94, when I was doing my 95, when I was doing this, we had predicted visas will get obsolete. And we had predicted it will happen in 20 years from then. So kind of that also helped understand that this is not going away. It will get better and better. The protocols may change, but the fact that people will want them on a computer on real time, this need will never change.
Hmm. I think that's a pretty handy framework to decide, where to build and why. I think what I'd like to learn is, or what I think everybody would be interested in is, that time it was so nascent. A lot of entrepreneurs today are building in things that are nascent. You would have had a couple of hacks, a couple of strategies to get people quickly onto it and grow the usage, right? There's some gamification that you did, but tell us a little bit about how that happened.
So we did two things. We said that if MoneyControl was a person, who would be it? And how do I make finance in rhymes and prose? So Bengali mein, when you say something is oversimplified, we call it chorai chobite. So I literally translated it into rhymes and prose kind of a thing and said, how do I make it in rhymes and prose? And it became a joke between us, but it stuck as a very easy to explain theme to people who are working. And ironically, the person we thought MoneyControl's persona should be was Jeeves.
Okay.
He's actually smarter than his master, but never makes his masters feel that he's smarter. Always says that I did it for you, sir, but actually does things the master would have never imagined, but never takes credit for. That is what MoneyControl had to be. Now, what is the best way to expose them to make them greedy? You can't tell them to invest money. But what if you gave them pseudo money and said, compete with each other and show me who can make how much? So it becomes like a shadow practice, right? I mean, you don't give a chance to a cricketer to prove he can play for India. You give a chance in the internal tournaments to show that he can play for India and then pick him. And he also knows cricket is my vocation, so he sticks to it. Correct? It has to be both ways. So we started this gaming. But at the same time, we were very clear that we want to tell people that there is investing and there is trading. And the surrogate message was you have more probability of making more money stably in not in trading, but in investing. The best way to do that was to give the game and say, hey, look, you always lose mostly in trading, but investment, dekho, paisa bana hai. So we taught people without teaching them by making them learn from them. Like I said, creating the opportunity to learn is what we focus on. And that theme, I think, irrespective of what we did, what I did, be it MoneyControl, be it JustDial, be it many other things that I've done, including the things you have seen in Xelp and all, I always say put a sensor there. We should know what he's doing. We need to trail and then track and then tell him and suggest to him. Never coerce or force him and say, "Aise karna hai. I know it more than you." That's the Jeeves character. So
I think
that is a demystification we wanted to do. Game is the best way to do it because people take it seriously, but don't feel hurt. You are willing to lose only in a game. The people who hate losing in a game, like my mom hates losing in Ludo, they're silly.
I think, what year was this when these gamifications?
98, 99.
98, 99. So on a personal note, when I started my entrepreneurial career with Mountain Partners, 2014, 15, back then the rage was about this new concept of gamification. And we were saying, okay, let's learn about this and let's figure it out. And this is all outside India, European fund. And we were learning about gamification. It gives me so much joy and pleasure to know that back in 98, we had an Indian company not only thinking about it, but implementing it and pioneering it. So that is something that I find fascinating.
Yeah, see, the thing is, there's a difference between gamification and gamified. We never gamified stock market.
Elaborate.
We never created a simulator for stocks. We actually made them play real. We gamified the approach of investing in stocks. Had the guy put real money at that time, that was what we did. We took real data and said, suppose you're doing a trade with pseudo money, how much money will you make? So the lesson the guy left with was not that I know the mechanics of stock market trading. The lesson he left with was, Had I actually had put real money in, I would have made this much return. That's the greed. So remember, I told the word greed. I wanted to create greed, but good greed, fair greed. That's the reason we showed that bad greed is also there. You trade, you have more chance of losing.
Interesting. I think gaming seems to have that profound impact on you. It kind of bleeds in interestingly into how you hire as well. There are famous stories floating around of you going into a guild, seeing how people play a game, and then picking up the person and hiring them in the entire guild. How did that work out? How did that happen? Why do you
Interviewing one person, hiring the whole guild, yes.
sorry?
Interviewing one of the guys and hiring the whole
Hiring
gang. I didn't interview all of them, yeah.
exactly. So why? How did that work out for you? Like, what does this even mean? Tell us a little bit.
So I have loved sports all my life. And one thing that I was always taught was sporting spirit. And that is enjoying it, winning, losing, appreciating someone who's beaten you and all those things. And when I was myself a very avid gamer. I still am. I love gaming, correct? So when I saw that, I always had this bias towards gamer because I understood. It is not like I want an echo chamber, but I know that on the ideological plane, the chances of this guy thinking more like me ideologically is much higher. So that's like a filter. Everyone has a filter. Some people filter on the alumni they go to. Some people filter on the way they speak English. Some people filter on surname the guy has. This was my filter. Because anyone who is into gaming and actively and seriously and can explain why they are doing it has mathematical intuition. They may think they don't know mathematics, but they have a strong intuition for that. And intuitive mathematical knowledge, what else do you need for programming? Isn't everything intuitive mathematical knowledge when you're writing an algorithm? I always looked at it that. Because that is intuition, right? Figuring out that I should break this and make it into a square minus b square formula rather than a simplification. I think that's what people should look at. And that's what you keep on doing. Solving puzzles.
Absolutely.
Everything is game. And people who take it actively, and I must tell you an anecdote. There's this Asimov story, and as I told you, that two robots are trying to define intelligence because they need to write an algorithm for intelligence. And then one robot head gives it charter to her because they're all an equalitarian society. So object one, you go and do this. After 2 weeks, object one comes and he reports back saying that it cannot be defined. It cannot be measured, but it can be indicated by presence of certain activities. He says, so leader asks, what are those activities? He says, jokes and riddles. He says, how did you come to this conclusion? Yeah. The person says, only when you have an abundance of a resource can you spend it for nothing. So that philosophy stuck to me always. That someone who's doing it and pressurizing his brain to think mathematically without any output really loves the subject. I would rather have that guy and try to teach him the nomenclature of coding because he's got the basics correct already. That's an easier stone to shape, and he'll reshape himself the moment you give the objective because that's a game to him. Hey, isko solve karna. He will look at it as a game, whereas everyone will look at it as a problem solving. They will not think of the fun of it. They will not take challenges. Now, they can be, and by the way, you need a balance of both.
Of course, yeah.
They will execute to perfection, but a gamer will experiment to such satisfaction. When you're in a sunrise stage, when you're building new stuff, when you yourself don't know what the heck you're going to build, which team would you want? A team which works on objectives or a team which works on briefs? I will always go for the objectives.
I think what you've done is definitely given me a fantastic answer the next time I'm caught gaming in the middle of a meeting. I'm not distracted. I'm looking to hire the next member of the company.
You have seen me interview people. I give them puzzles. I
Yeah.
tell them this is a problem. You have played this game. How will you win?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, Zahan, you have also noted that the guy who was non-communicative, stammering, Once it comes to that, he becomes a different beast. And when we recruit him, ends up being one of the vernacular speaking genius programmers. I think we get shrouded by communication too much to get real metal. If someone can communicate to me in mathematics and in problem solving ability, I would rather recruit that person. And what better mode to do it than gaming?
What I'm picking from that is go for someone who has a depth in concept, not necessarily communication, right? We have a lot of people that are great communicators.
Absolutely. And
But
again, another thing you're missing out. It's not just concepts. It's about depth in learning rate.
of course,
So
absolutely.
that is sometimes you can build great concepts because if your learning rate is high and your inquisitiveness is high. Learning rate is still a factory production. You have studied in a good college, teachers have taught you, you have good foundation because people have told you and you know it. But someone who has derived to the same conclusion from first principles by solving a problem without anyone telling him, who's the guy who is more potent to discover the next big thing?
For sure.
So I'm a big sucker for, I'm a big fan of, people who are self-studies, people who are learning, and especially people who have problem-based learning approach. And a gamer has all those attributes.
I think a bunch of the gamers listening here know where their next interview might happen. It's in the game chat. Sandy, MoneyControl got acquired, right? That happened. It's something that every entrepreneur thinks about. Okay, there's an acquisition, and you were famously quoted in
We
saying
got amalgamated, not acquired.
amalgamated.
So we were amalgamated to build the new product, and we did build the new product. So what the team of MoneyControl went on to build was a first 360-degree news desk application. So whatever was being filed was going to the TV screen, to the stream, to the editors, and to the site simultaneously.
I'm losing track of how many firsts happened, but
It's not a question of first, it's a question of solving a problem. Like, why should a reporter have to solve 5 different reports for 5 different media? Why can't the machine do it? So single filing, multiple routing.
Gotcha.
See, that's the point. People looked at it as many firsts. We looked at it as distribution. Why should we complicate things?
True. Very true. And then when this amalgamation did happen, and when that particular journey came to its natural conclusion, you were quoted in saying that the best thing that ended up happening was that the employees went on to become entrepreneurs. A lot of startups.
That has been the story of that part.
So tell us about the MoneyControl Mafia. Tell us about what are these startups? Who are these people? I'd love to know.
They are very under the radar, so they will never be called mafia. Also, they're very law-abiding and not quick-witted enough to fool people and just get loads of money and then shut down companies. They have built sustainable businesses and onto that part. Be it Jason, be it Mohit, even the Burp Group and all those things. They were acquired by Network 18 and then they went on to that part. These are all the extension part of it. I think Anand, Bolo, Jo bhi bolo, they all went on to do things. Sadly, the person who should have done much greater things was disappointed with the way we ended up with the MoneyControl thing and all. Victor could have gone on and become one of the brightest stars in the fintech or anything of that sort. That MoneyControl incident probably jarred him too much. And the spirit, because as I said, he was the most passionate person. To him, MoneyControl was life. Probably we had a side view and all, we didn't get burnt in that, in the way MoneyControl went, not the way that we wanted, because we realized if you're a media company, you can't build a trading engine. So many of our plans and all whittled away just because we were ignorant and we were immature. We didn't understand terms of engagement or merger. We didn't realize that this is not exactly the same thing as getting liquidity. But we were not thinking of those things when we were burning MoneyControl. So to me, it didn't bother because we had set out with the objective of making the Indian middle class aware that stock market is a needed thing and it's a great thing. I think that we have done splendidly over the years and it's still running. So it's like a Dravid pour, it stays hit, it reaches the boundary smoothly.
I think to invoke Victor, you did not regret building. I think MoneyControl,
Absolutely not.
right?
No, no regrets.
There are a lot of founders out there that are currently in this exact position that you were back then and what Victor was in back then. And what I want to make sure they understand is that, hey, this may be the case, but something else fantastic is just around the corner, especially for somebody that's entrepreneurial, that loves problems. So right after MoneyControl became another household name, JustDial. How did JustDial happen? Tell us a little bit about VSS Money.
EDOT was doing good. Even after MoneyControl thing happened, we stopped engaging. So EDOT was existing. The part we were working, that project was gone. But EDOT by that time had gone and established as a very nice now the what is the financial technologies kind of a thing to make it. So many of the order routing systems of 5paisa and all that we had made those. Many of the user interfaces or complex systems of multi-instrument trading, which is unthought of now. One platform for doing and that time, sorry, not now, which is very common now. Mutual fund, stocks, bonds from one platform. So for IDBI, we built those, and we built risk management systems. So we had made a niche, even for some overseas projects and all we were doing. And then we were also working for a company called Geodesic, whom we had long relationships with, supplying technology. And finally, EDOT was merging into Geodesic.
Correct.
And we did merge. And incidentally, 3 companies merged, or rather, what it's called aggregation or accumulation or amalgamation technically. And these 3 companies were Picopita Simputer, us, EDOT Solutions, and Amachitra. And we had planned to do something using Simputer to do comic book and other training things on the things and make it a mass market product. But best laid plans on men and all, that didn't work out very well. One of the last projects we got in EDOT, just before the merger and all was happening, was JustDial. And the charter was to make the brochureware website to talk of the corporate presence of JustDial. But when I went and learned the business and all, I thought, man, this is one chance I would like to do. And if we do it, and that time Yahoo was big. Yahoo was getting into this local search and all, all those big things we used to hear in US and all. And I thought JustDial was doing a much better job. It was already established. It was there for almost 10 years when I started talking to them, about 9 years. And I thought, let me bite the bullet. Without anything and all, I just told someone I was working with that I want to meet Money. I want to tell him something on that call. Money was very magnanimous and he immediately gave me time. We met. Then he said, why don't you come tomorrow again and we'll talk more. I need to think something. And the next day he said that all the things you said are very good. Will you make it? I said, yeah, I can. So why don't you come here and make it? And that simple way of telling that unless you come, don't talk about it. And if you come, I'm very happy if you come and make it. Yeah. Both of these things together, I make my mind. And that amalgamation was not really happy for me. I was not happy with the work we were doing. We were supposed to do X, we were ending up doing Y. Didn't seem good. And I loved that challenge because for the first time, I was directly fighting an MNC for control on my country, the information of my country. So it was a big high. And the fact that I was given that charter, the fact that I was given the freedom, and thanks and hats off to Money. I wish I become a great leader like him. He gave me complete freedom. He told me nothing changes. You just don't have to take care of finances, marketing, and other things, but you still have to manage your budgets. You will work like an independent business and you tell me what is the value and you demand your budget and you'll get it. Otherwise, you're not getting putti-kori.
I think building a company is something you mentioned. In many meetings, you're known to ask us to think not in terms of valuation as us VC people tend to think, but in terms of GDP growth. Now, somebody thinking about a company being measured by the growth it's bringing to the nation's GDP is something I've never heard of. Did that come about in JustDial? How did that come? Is that how you view companies?
Yes. No, I didn't view that. But while I was in JustDial, the humility and understanding of it came. So when people started saying, oh, it's a simple thing, it's a call center, I laughed because I realized that they don't understand the impact JustDial is playing. And let me explain to this. I thank you for asking that question, because this is one thing I want to say. It's not glamorous, it's not big, but it serves the underserved India. People who don't have the confidence to use the internet or the knowledge or the language. They have the assurance of a voice support to do it. And at the same time, they can do self-support. And as India progressed and they became the same user converted from calling to using it on the mobile. But what it does, it gives the chance and the right to exist for MSMEs. Advertising is such a big cost that they can be completely rooted out by someone spending big bucks and dying. It is concerns like JustDial, which give quality of data, that people still come and don't get biased by advertising and find local things who are not advertising. And JustDial is not the context. JustDial is the intent. So anyone calling JustDial has not accidentally come there. They have come with the intent to purchase as high as 90%. So every lead that emanates from JustDial, 90% of the time will result in a transaction. Now let's take today's number. Let me talk on hypothetical numbers. It's a listed entity. I should not talk of numbers without knowing them exactly. I'm sure it's north of that, not south of that. Let's take a benchmark of 5 million queries served. So 90% of that, Zaran, is 4.5 million. Assume each of those transactions in today's day and age causing a transaction worth 500 rupees.
Yeah.
उसको भी डिस्काउंट दे दो, तो 2.25 बिलियन आ रहा है ना. Take 2 billion. 2 billion rupees of transaction every day JustDial is facilitated. Forget JustDial's revenue. The fact is it can only monetize 3% of that is a different thing. But that's the role it's playing in India's GDP creation. So why the hell should I not be proud for working for that? And what sort of an idiot doesn't see that and says it's a simple solution? I used to get angry at first. I was young. But then I learned that, okay, the less they understand, the better it is. And then this you have heard a lot of times in Xel. I used to say that the best technology is invisible. Exactly. And that's a realization that came. But these guys don't see the tech. That's why they don't get phobic about it. That's why they're confidently using it. If I overstress tech or overstate it, maybe they'll get phobic of it and do it. So that iceberg thing came in. That what shows as a peep, 9 times of it should be underground and people should not realize it. Then even Titanics will sink.
Riff on invisible technology a bit more. In today's age, and this might date this conversation, but in today's age, everyone is shouting about Gen AI first and the different technologies being used to deliver products. And here you are taking a contrarian or a different stance.
I'm not taking a contrarian approach. I'm taking a realistic approach. It's not contrarian. Okay. The real people get it. You never hear Apple talk of tech.
True.
Apple,
so,
right? Apple talks of
what is invisible tech in today's age, do you think?
So let's say that when you go, so most popular ones are not visible tech. That's why they're popular. It's the one who are trying to say it and say we are different, we have this, we have that. The customer doesn't care ghanta.
Yeah.
They want a great user experience. They want value in their life. And you add value in only 2 ways. By saving time or increasing productivity. And sometimes it's a compound of both these. Right? When I say productivity, and it is different from saving time because you may still make unforced errors, even though you are controlling time better. So these things help you with that. Correct? That's the 2 value. Now, what you do in the kitchen, as long as the kitchen is hygienic and clean and you're not contaminating it, the taste and the aftertaste and the nutrition is all people care about. They don't really care whether you did it at 101 degrees centigrade or 104 degrees centigrade. But you go to any of the talk shows or this Chef's Galore or whatever, they will talk so specific. That's a show. That's why they have to talk the jargon so that people watch it with some mystery and mystique. But do really people care? No. They care about the taste. Because you're not able to give the taste, you're talking about all these other things. Classic case is that, look at this Master Chef. Why do they talk so much about this umami and this and the judges give so much verbose thing? Because they can't make the consumer or the watcher of the show actually taste the food. So when you don't have the real taste, that's when you talk of the technical details. Technology itself is the same thing. When you don't have the real feel, then you talk about it. No, but this is more secure. But I want to publish a report. No, that you can't do because of security. I want to download an Excel file. No, we have data privacy. Then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why is the guy using it? Shouldn't you be controlling that access control? What is stopping him from taking his mobile out, taking a picture and taking it? You already have an analog hole. Why are you making it cumbersome when you are anyway showing it and you can do it anyway? No, it's still a resistance. Maybe, maybe not. So sometimes we do overkill. Sometimes we do technology because we can do it. But the best ones are things which people don't. For example, this is an example I love giving. The JustDial auto suggest, right? It is biased by the time and everything. And whenever you do something, there's a magic in it. Why is chappal coming in April on top, and why is Christmas tree coming in December on top? Do you stop to think how did they do it? No. You just feel ऐसे ही तो होना था. ये तो मैं भी सोच रहा था. That is invisible. When it matches with your perceptive intuition. Estimating that is where the deep tech is. That comes with data science. But when it comes out, people don't care, people don't bother, and they think that's how it should be.
What I'm taking away from this is very often we have companies that are very proud and eager to showcase the innovation, the technology.
Do it in the right forum.
Exactly.
I am very proud and eager to showcase the right technology in two places where people say India doesn't have deep tech, or when I'm trying to recruit.
Of course.
So, Zaran, you must also know that I have talked in so many tech conferences. There, I don't talk of these things. I talk pure tech. I talk how number crunching helps, which technology helps. Well. Get your audience right. Don't try to bamboozle an innocent person with technology jargon just because you know more than him. Go to a real place, pick up a person of your own size, and then talk tech. And then let's see if you can defend your jargon. That's what I mean by that. I'm not saying we should not talk about it. I'm saying we should not talk about it in the wrong way. We should not think that is a big way.
Yeah. Gotcha. Let's take our mind's eye back to that conversation you had with Money. He said, you said a few good things. Karega kya, right? Just give us a flavor. What were those good things that you talked about? Kya kiya aapne?
I think we change the mindset. So as I told, this is something I said. Let me tell you my perception. I'll tell you. You know it, so you spare me and humor me with the boredom. I think the best software ever written was the Indian Railway Reservation System.
What?
The Indian Railway Reservation System. Because it worked at a time when networks didn't work, electricity didn't work. The bloody thing functioned. And more importantly, it gave hope and the sense of right to every Indian that I can book my own ticket on my own. I am free of corruption of the touts. I am secured that no one will book in block and then sell me in black. Do you have any idea what a software like that does for the country's spine? You start demanding the same level of transparency and all from the nation for everything. And answerability. So many things changed after that. Correct?
Absolutely.
So you have to look at the impact it does. That's what we kept on discussing. I also told you that if you can tell me that today so many people use something I have made, and that is greater than yesterday, and it's been growing for the last 3 months, I would say you are on a superb track. If you tell me I created this and it is chopped down from 30 milliseconds to 15 milliseconds, and we are going to save costs, I would say well done. But are they going to be usage? It will save cost if people are using it. If people are not using it, how will I know it's 30 seconds? It's 0 is 0. So first is the usage. Everything else is a multiplier. If your fundamental is 0, doesn't matter what else you do, it's still a bloody 0. So karega kya and all, by that I mean is this impact. If you have something more specific that you want to do it, I always say that in various places. I tell it to entrepreneurs. I told you when you were joining. I try to set expectations very clear. That yes, we are mad. Yes, what we are trying has a high degree of chance of failure. फिर भी करेगा क्या? And that, brings to that part that this also I've told that entrepreneurs set, and I'm sure that we can anchor here and talk. We may have questions or you may want to elaborate some of my points of view for your audience and all. I always tell this jokingly that there are fashionpreneurs and there are passionpreneurs. Now, fashionpreneurs may work. I don't understand. There's an industry I don't understand which has been running for centuries, so I cannot question its validity, but it's not for me. I understand the passionpreneurs, people who look at the why. So similarly, what you heard was why I wanted to do MoneyControl. To get the middle class aware of stock market, because I believe unless they become aware, we'll never get the entrepreneurial, innovative entrepreneurs. We'll always get the licensed Raj traders as entrepreneurs, industrialists, but not innovators. Because I believe in the middle class. I believe in the MSMEs. They end up creating 75% plus percentage of the jobs in India. And we suck up to the corporates who create only 15% of the jobs 10 are self-employed. So are we really focused on the right places? I'm very proud that I got a chance to work on JustDial because I serve 75% of the breadwinners part of India. I'm talking about non-agricultural. Sorry, don't get me wrong. Non-agricultural 75% is from the organized sector. Farming also is unorganized if you look at it. Marginal farmers are actually in the ratio of 1:5, 1:4. Even there it holds true, but it's not to be taken lightly. So that is what it does. The impact it creates is much, much higher. That's the passion which drove us to make the solutions. So we don't mind being stupid and not making money. It was not the end of the world for us. We hardly expected anything, but we had to solve the problem. Any day I would go with such entrepreneurs.
Well, I don't think either happened. Neither was it stupid, nor did it not make money. I think JustDial.
Well, I'm not talking about the stupid failures I had because it's a nice place. I'm trying to showcase myself too. But remember that behind everything that you hear, there are at least 5, 6 failures. And I'm very proud I did them. Because that, okay, fine. That is another thing I want to say. That's a gamer mindset also, but it's also the entrepreneur skill, I believe. We believe there is no failure. You either learn or you succeed. I did mention it in a very different way before that only failures teach you. This is the reason.
Got it. I think there's a lot of untold interesting factoids about JustDial. You can list a few of them, but just off the top of my head, from the things that we get from you from Osmosis, it was one of the first investments Tiger made in India. It was one of the first companies when they went public that did what it did in its space. It was one of the first companies to deploy AI ML for geolocation. Just tell us a little bit about that, a little bit about those journeys of building.
So, we never did it to become first. We looked at what are people going to need in 6 months. Can we build it before they want it? So again, the fact is it was a very nice, well-oiled mechanism looking at it from multiple facets. And every department contributed. We were executors. We were arbitrators at most. But the credit to it belongs to the perception, intuition of the services team, the data team, everyone, and mostly from the leadership. The fact that it's very difficult to anticipate what people will need tomorrow. And if they've asked for it and then you do, they will say very good. But imagine you going and asking for something and someone giving you ready-made and say, yeah, we didn't give it because you would get confused, but we had it ready. And you do it consistently. The faith in the brand grows. So these all came as natural consequences of that. We read the market well. So if you look at JustDial's growth and India's mobile penetration growth, we were able to ride the wave.
Got it.
We were almost like an index tracking fund, tracking that growth and growing with it and saying, what will people do with the mobile? Oh, they will watch maps. Oh, they will watch pictures. Oh, now they can watch videos. Acha, they can do a simulated walkthrough now. But never doing it before time and looking for the model audience. We could have, take JustDial's website itself. It came 10 years after it started existing. They had the domain booked, but they never made the site because they didn't believe people would, when things are not working for their basic phones and it's not coming with basic mails, how do you expect it to work for someone to come at the time of immediate inquiry. So then they will tell Masi, Masi काम मिलता है, Masi will tell call JustDial, JustDial will be called. But 96, 97, when internet is propagating, 2006, 2007, when it's become mass market, it has gone beyond the top 2% of the population. Now it's time. Otherwise, you're doing a novelty rich kind of a solution, which everyone else was doing. So there were companies which were looking at local search but aimed at the niche. Where are they now and where is JustDial now? Yeah, this is happening. It's not thinking enough. Which company has been making consistent profit for year after year ever since its inception? Never went out of pocket. That's a caliber, still relevant. And the critics who do it are mostly not the target audience of JustDial.
Yeah.
They will be when they get into a zone of uncomfort, where they don't know how to even frame the question to Google. Then they need human help. They will also call JustDial. But, and again, you go and ask, and किसी को JustDial मालूम नहीं है. Maybe you ask the guy, do you know 88888? He says, हाँ, वो तो मैं रोज फोन करता हूँ.
I think that there are these criticisms that you're touching upon is testament to the invisibleness of the technology. So I think that's
not just technology. So again, technology is a broad word. Everything is technology. It's like that 3 Idiots movie. No? A machine is something which makes the efficiency increase. We strive to define technology in a very jumbo mumbo way. But the simple fact is anything that increases productivity or saves time is technology. And essentially, the best of us for the rest of us is what technology truly is. Where the knowledge I have accumulated or the knowledge a master craftsman has accumulated is somehow boxed into a solution where the person can use that knowledge without knowing the inclination.
So, things are going great. JustDial is a company that eventually goes public. You would have been, I would assume, at a very comfortable position. Why then did you start this curiously named company, Xelpmoc?
First things first, I thought it was a need of India because, once we got the exits from JustDial, and I did start the usual thing people do, angel investment, giving GAN, doing things. And as I watched from the sidelines, one pattern was very disturbing to me was that people who are doing solutions which are very indigenous, they don't have global peers, they don't get funding. They don't get the glamour. And often they're not able to build a tech team. And that's something I didn't realize why. And I realized that no one will do it because it's not glamorous. It's not sustainable. And I wanted to solve the problem. I would have preferred had I been able to do it from within JustDial, but JustDial at that time was not focused on taking on this kind of a venture building. In fact, I had told that we should try not to be a bigger and bigger airline. We should try to become the airport and let other airlines take off. I joked with things and all, but it was not in the strategic fit of the company. But I had convinced myself that this is important to do. I would, again, the same Victor lesson, right? Regret doing it than not doing it. So I was not going to regret not doing it. So I jumped into it. And while jumping into it, I also, again, the middle class investing, I also wanted the middle class to invest into startups. And they don't have a good vehicle. Their ticket sizes are not much for them to go in as angel investors, etc., etc. What we talk as angel investors small is still the top 1% of the country. And that's why they have. I wanted it to be sachet into 100 rupee, 200 rupee. So that's why from day zero, when we set up to do what is now called Xelpmoc, at that time we used to call it Project X. One notion was that we will try to go public as soon as possible. And then we put a timeline to it that within 3 years. And we do whatever it takes to do that. So some may say that, oh, you did not ready for market or not. We were ready for the market because finally Xelpmoc product is that. How do I give middle class the access and the learning opportunity and the experience of fitting the culture? Or what is the startup cycle? Oh, they'll be going high, then they'll be going low. Some will fail, some will start. That's 2 cycles. Each cycle is roughly 7 years. Every sector goes through it. If I want to think deep, if I want to be an impact person, culture changer, category creator, and Also, the fact that we are not getting younger, this probably will be our last runway. You better do the best thing with more patience and not do things for the shortcut to get things. That was one possibility, to get carried away. The time was really high and good for raising funds, especially as people who are seasoned, as they call it, industry experts. I was all of those. But this was a person, and when I talked about it, no one wanted to solve this problem.
Mm.
And the contrarian in me gets very excited when that happens. If no one is able to see the opportunity, and I am very logically clear that this is going to happen, I'm going to bet on myself more times that this is a great opportunity, because others are not seeing it, I'm seeing it.
Mm. I'm very glad you did, because that's eventually where I ended up meeting you. Xelpmoc, it's a remarkable place. Some remarkable facts that I'm certain most people don't know. It was the fastest startup to list on the main board. One of the first IPOs that allowed UPI transactions to buy shares, of the first.
No, not one of the first, the first.
The first, right? It paved the way for a lot of loss-making companies to enter the public market, or companies that were pre-profit, let's say, to enter the market.
We became a template for the other startups to go live. We became the needle packet to make all those things proven and debated.
So
But Karan, I think what we did was we created a culture of innovation. You have been in that part. Where you're working now is also one of the culmination of one of those pursuits, and we still are connected from that. It was envisioned and it was thought that that's the entire part of it. That knowing when to make something independent so that it can have its own life, and still being fair to the current stakeholders. That is what the main thing is. That how do I maximize and optimize growth for both sets of matchmaking engine? That's it. And the name itself stands for it, right? Complex, turnaround, making things simple. So we strive to be that part. But what is the real thing you saw in Zep? It's a people. A bunch of people who probably could be anywhere they want to be, but deciding to be there and sleeping, breathing, drinking, thinking of how to cause impact. Yes, there are always people who are coming for incidentals and all, but they also get soaked in it. They don't underappreciate the passion the other have, but they know that, okay, this is not my job. I want to do my tech. They also have scope for the leadership, the mad quotient. They always believe in the mission, and that's very critical. That way, I'm very privileged to have that set of mad hatters who are okay to go along the whole way and see where it ends. Because it's a long journey. I told you the 2 cycles of 7 right from the day one, right? We are more or less gone through 1.5 at most. On the public market front, we are about to go 1 cycle. That also matters. I don't think we are doing bad. I think, in fact, it has been better than anticipated, though it flattered to deceive to some extent in the midterm. But if I look ab initio, I should be very happy if this is why I stand up. But in between, yes, we had got ambitious. We have thought we'll change the whole world. Government could be, make solutions for the government and have real good impact and all. Yes, there are challenges, but if we do good work, who will stop us? Well, we have burnt our hand, become wiser, more mature. But that doesn't mean we have given up hope. We have learned what doesn't work. We know what we have to do to make it work. And now we know that till we do it, we should not burn money on hope. We should have a strategy. We should know it. That's the main. Every situation is like that. Sectors that we have abandoned are because of those reasons. But does it mean we'll not resurface them sometime? Of course we'll do. Timing, right set of people, right market. Pehle market pakro, fir karo. You learn those things.
I think Xelp did a lot of amazing things, still does. One thing where it should really do better is telling the story of Xelp, right? That journey of 0 to IPO in 3 years, starting to IPO in 3 years, is one that a lot of people haven't heard. So tell us a little bit more about that.
As I told you, it was an objective set by which the company was formed. So for us, it was a desired result that we reached, and we didn't give up despite everything and anything, the current system and all. Coming to your point, there is a difference, and we love difference of opinions in self, you know that, right? I am all for under promising, over delivering. In fact, I tell those equation, right? That promise by delivery. So delivery by promise is the brand value. So if you have delivered more than your promise, your brand value is high. Also, this is a time when it is a risky investment for most people. I would like to keep it within knowledgeable circles who very well understand what they're doing. I am on record in saying that no one should invest more than 1% or 2% of their portfolio in Xelp. And that fact that it's a long-term thing, they should not think of it for 3, 4, 5 years. Not that everyone will listen to my advice, nor am I a financial advisor, but that's the way I would like to perceive that. And that, so again, one exit, the first exit, the first part of it, I want to wait for that. And then I don't want to tell the story. My initial set of believers who have got their due should tell the stories. That's a much better story. Otherwise, it's PR.
Well, I'll continue trumpeting the Xelp story. Well in advance. Sandy, help people understand Xelp. Maybe what we can do is help them understand it through the eyes of a company. Let's talk about MeHoop. So, how was MeHoop incepted? What role did Xelp play? What role did you play? Where is MeHoop now? Whatever you can share, please do, because I think that's
I think first of all, I would say that there are news today, which is 28th March, in papers, which I don't want to comment on because it's there, but it's in the news and stuff like that. So they're very newsy, they're there. But let's understand how it came about. MeHoop was doing a vernacular translated text SMS-based service, which would then take that text, understand the intent of it, and then give you the responses and do it through a chatbot.
Now, can you say that in plain English that people like me understand?
So essentially, if you type, let's say, "Hum kahan jaye khane ke liye," Google would not understand it if you write it in English script. Correct? You have to write it in Hindi or something, or use the English keyboard.
Yeah.
Can I answer that question? That's a simple thing. They were doing that or trying to solve that problem when we met. And Xelp and MeHoop are contemporary. In fact, many ways MeHoop started, the concept of MeHoop started before Xelp was, they were getting parallel before Xelp was technically formed. I was already working on MeHoop personally, personal capacity and all, being led by a friend. My point to them was that I had looked at JustDial, I had seen the power of voice, and I knew they're on the right track. And if we can make it voice oriented to that part, one thing led to the other, and we developed and we said, we are in a multilingual country, let's be agnostic of linguistics. Let's go with phenoms or phonetics. And let's understand we're in India. So let's make it very small form factor and let it also be capable of being able to do on a last known good state, like your OS is, in an offline state also. And we went ahead and did it. We were doing it for call centers, we were doing it for other use cases, but accidentally, the first use case which got pulled, and we were pulled to the solution was, can you do in-car audio translation and comprehension for our onboard dashboard from Tata's? And we worked with them. They understood the power of such a thing, and they fostered. We kept up to their belief in us and developed this absolutely stunning product. And every Tata car for the last 2 years have been going out with MeHoop shipped. So if you're a Tata car user and you are talking to your car, you're talking through MeHoop. That is impact. Now we also have Maruti and all, so it's gone a long way. And they're great at business. We're getting into call centers. All those things are happening. But the basic thing was, a normal vernacular Indian should not feel ashamed to demand what is due to him because of his paucity of knowledge of technology or English, either. And should be able to do it in the easiest way. Right? And I believe each of us, no matter how sophisticated we are, have that simple Indian somewhere in us. So I'm not talking of a cluster of users, I'm talking of a mode of users. If I am not very conversant with the car, which I am not, I would still like to know basics like, kitna dur tak chalega? I don't understand mileage, I don't understand petrol tank capacity, not my problem. I'm new to the car, I don't know which button to press or get it. Garmi lag raha hai, AC chalu kar do. Can the car take action? Now, the most sophisticated, learned person will also have that moment where he wants to speak exactly like this. Imagine you needing something and having to switch mode in an artificial way to get the subject. Doesn't make sense.
It's not invisible technology.
Exactly. it should feel like there is no technology. And the best way to do is I will talk normally. That's what I do. And still it should understand me. What's the big deal? Now, what you do is you flip the confidence level. For many people, oh, that's a computer. If I can't use it properly, it'll know what an idiot I am, so I'll not use it. But the moment you make it voice powered, the power equation shifts psychologically.
Yeah.
You start thinking every damn person understands me. This doesn't understand me. Technology is dumb. I'm not dumb. And that makes usage happen. So where MeHoop is we started MeHoop, we hosted them, but because it was deep tech, they always had an independent. I acted as the acting CTO for some time till the product set in, but we set up their own team, build that thing. Co-founder essentially makes sure they look at every problem. So Tapan and Biplav were clearly the lead. But my job was to make sure they understand the opportunity of technology. My job was to make sure that when there are tough marketing calls to do and all, they're doing. But there was no clear and there was no lack of clarity as to who leads the show, and that had to be the part. Xelp's model is that we want to be the tech co-founder or the gap fulfiller for startups which are solving hard problems with our expertise, which is mostly tech and understanding of processes, design, India. These are the things we do, but never coming their way. We work with them because we believe in that. They're not our proxies. They are the reason we believe, okay, with this person, we can solve this problem. But we take our duty. We don't try to give what is wanted. Obviously, that has to be served. We try to perceive what is needed. By the user first. That's a co-founder's role. When my other co-founder can do it, yes, technically I am the tech guy. I should only supply what they're saying. But at least if I don't believe what they're saying, or if I believe there's a particular need, I should make it aware. There is a pecking order. There's a clear chain of command. Someone has to take the final call. But I will not be doing my duty if I don't make them aware of the possibilities. I think through MeHoop, I can tell you that's what Xelp does. And you have been there. You have seen this. So many times we could have intervened, but we held back just because the intuitive call was important. We cannot be there. We cannot tell them. And there's no point in doing in that company what the guy doesn't believe in and acting like an expert and telling it. It's like someone who's played the role of a cricketer in Lagan coming and trying to comment on cricket. Maybe a cricketer and be able to comment, but just because he has played the role of a cricketer doesn't give him the rights to comment on the techniques of cricket.
Yeah. I think, two things that stand out to me, and it's easy for it to get lost in all the stuff that we just heard, which is you mentioned Tata is running on MeHoop, Maruti is running on MeHoop. What is that? That's like 60-70% of the vehicles on road today.
76.
Sorry?
76%.
76% of vehicles today powered by a company that probably a lot of people haven't even come across. And the other thing that you mentioned that I feel bears repetition and bears expansion is to the Sahab at the back and the driver in the front, the technology is agnostic. It also allows you to converse in 3 languages at the same time.
No, now it's 8. Any three, yes. You can speak.
Because Indians, we tend to use different languages.
Yeah, we always are speaking on one base language with a sprinkling of 2-3 other languages, and English is always our go-to communal language.
Aage se right le lo and please turn the AC off.
Yeah.
So this is something that MeHoop enables, and it has been enabling for now 76%.
For example, take a more complicated case. AC on करके temperature कम कर दो. Try that on some other things. The way they force fit is they add temperature, AC, on, all as Hindi words, which is wrong. Whereas we are looking at a dictionary-based approach of appropriate words, which is why it's scalable and can take into any language.
And additionally, it runs without the need for an internet connection, right?
Well, if internet is there, it can do much more, but it can do. So take a case. You hear of these cases that basement में था internet नहीं चल रहा है, Tesla नहीं चला. That never happened with a MeHoop.
I think that is what
you must realize one thing.
Yeah.
Anything that's not connected to the internet also means no hacking can happen through that. So imagine you open up an agent like this, and some through backdoor and all come and get control, and someone from remotely start playing the car for you or asking to start the AC or asking to do things which can actually be distractive and destructive. Just try to do the AC on off 50 times in a very fast succession, any SE will break down. Someone can do that. With Mihoop, that's not possible.
I think the Mihoop story is something that I personally love listening to, given it's something that is so unintuitive, but when you hear about it and learn about it, it's so obvious, right? It needs to be done. I think that's been a through line in Sandy, your journey, if you don't mind me sort of.
I sometimes joke to our guys. We are the guys left to figure out how to bell the cat.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the cat has to be belled, but no
Someone-
one tells you how. We figure it out.
I want to switch gears here. And also I'm aware that I have to be cognizant and respectful of your time, Sandy. You've seen the history of the startup ecosystem. You've been right at the start when you mentioned internet is coming about. Then at 96 you did these tablets. Slowly and steadily you've seen a couple of companies that you're actively involved in at leadership level go public, right? You have some views that I wanted to talk about. One is that you typically do have a criticism that the Indian startup culture nowadays is a bit top heavy. What does that mean, and why do you feel so?
When I talk of the startup ecosystem, I by all means include the VCs, financiers, and all also, right?
Yes.
And I often feel that they are more of look at it from banking and accounting principles than from a capitalism point. So ask any person, it's very difficult to raise funding without benchmarks. Because unless they can compare and contrast, most people cannot have an independent decision as to what's the fundability of it. So now it's a self-fulfilling curse, right? If you have that and everyone knows that, what are the most likely thing entrepreneurs would do? Find something which is a hole in the BCG matrix and target that. Isme paisa ut raha hai. People are petting it. This has a global make some beautiful Excel sheets. It doesn't matter if my passion is not there, opportunity hai, I'll sell and then I'll do whatever I like. तो ये सब घुमाने का चक्कर हो जाए. That is what I don't like about the startups. And then there are the silent workers who look at the problem and all, and they rarely get funding till they have been able to somehow survive the initial onslaught and stand on their 2 feet. When they have done that, then people are saying, wear high heels, wear these gumboots, wear these jeans and all. बेचारा धोती पहन के है, उसको तब पहना के आ रहा है. And when he really wanted the price for a second pair of dhoti, no one gave it to him. I think that's a point that we have to do. Now, I will tell you something which can be controversial. So please edit it if it's a problem.
Go for it.
Most VCs are India focused.
Mhm.
We need VCs who are Bharat focused. And there's a big difference in those two words. You have one card, and we say in the constitution, India, that is Bharat. But those of us who think of Bharat or our country as Bharat, and those of us who think of our country as India, are very different target audience. Yeah. Those of us who are thinking of the country as India are thinking that when someone asks, what is my country? I reply India. So they already are thinking from an inside out perspective, right? And those who are thinking on that perspective as, मैं भारत के हूँ, यहाँ पर कुछ नहीं है, बातों बातों में वो लोग भारत ही बोलते होंगे ज़्यादा. They are the ones who are underserved. Now that is our risk, I see, that we are overweight, as you call it in a financial term, on the most milkable section. Now it's a fact that 1% of India is 10% of Europe. That's our sheer numbers. So it's by number, it's still a large number worth going for. It's of the same value. In fact, spending power is growing now, vagera, vagera. But what you're doing by being overweight on that sector is you're creating a lot of economic asymmetry. And that is bound to give rise to a lot of social problems, be it political, be it communal. When resources are scarce, people try to find differentiators. So that someone else other than them can be blamed. They need to identify a they. And that will happen recursively if we don't take care of it. And that is where I think we need a lot of passionate entrepreneurs. I mean, Zaran, you know me, I think the solution to everything is passionate entrepreneurs. And I stick to that. Because for me, they are the hope.
Yeah.
And the fashionpreneurs are distractions. which sometimes may kill a market. I want to go on record and say that when it started, it was a great, possibly a passion-preneur thing. EdTech is something that needed a solution. India needs EdTech solutions.
Yeah.
But look at what a fashionpreneurship can end up doing to the whole sector. Now, no one wants to talk about EdTech. Does it mean our EdTech needs have vanished? No, it's there. Can you get a financer for it easily? Absolutely not. They will compare, contrast, and not do it. Very difficult. But does it mean there are passionate entrepreneurs not working in EdTech? Absolutely. There are people who are doing it. Are they being supported? No. They're being hanged to be dry. This is what I don't like about the ecosystem. You are in the VC industry, your job is to make money, but you are a capitalist. You're also supposed to take risk. You're paid to take risk. Your LPs are paying you a carry and a charge and a fund so that you take risks on their behalf. Otherwise, they would have put it in the FD. Why are you thinking like that? That's my whole point. Balancing is fine, but trying to be, and that's exactly what happens. एक जाता है तो सब घूम के जाता है वहां पर. So that also means वो एक फेल होता है तो सब फेल हो जाता है. Then they will say we have burnt our hands, will not enter. Again, it's a vicious cycle. This entire tautology or this copying and this following the leader or whatever is a perceived leader, flavor of the season, that is what I am against. And I think that's because we have still not come up with a collective consciousness of what is going to cause impact. And believe that with a demography like ours and a disparity and dispersion like ours, any impact equal to high revenue. I don't think people have that perception. They think impact is NGO. Because it's for the lower rung, NGO का काम है. उसमें पैसा नहीं है. Now let me ask you a question. You're a very knowledgeable person, Saran. What is the world's first crowdsourced movement of collecting money from a cloud and getting something done?
I would assume religion. So
Sorry?
Religion. So probably setting up.
That's a philosophical answer. Give me a company or some instance.
Church
That is very philosophical. I'm not getting that into you. Now, you will do Parsi confidence on that, but I'm not getting there.
Okay, so the first crowdsourced product, you mean?
First crowdsourced instance
Instance.
of a commercial output. Let's put it specific. Religion is not a commercial output.
I mean, the Dutch VOC was a public entity that crowdsourced cash to then take over land. But I'm assuming that's not where we're going with this. So
That's again sovereign.
Yeah.
I'm saying commercial.
Tell me.
So you will only think of you're racking your brain thinking of which US company did it, right?
Which Dutch company, US company, which religion? Yeah, this is where my brain is going.
Right. But do you know how the movie Manthan was made? A lakh farmer paid 5 rupees each to produce the movie.
I had no idea.
Right? Not only did they invest in that, they also took tractors and their friends and families and went to watch the movie also, making the box office hit. Now, that is the India we have to understand. That we have numbers. We can produce by crowdfunding from the lowest of the strata a box office hit. No Bollywood, no unnecessary money, no nepotism. Simple striving to tell their own story. So if there are innovators like Shyam Benegal, there are methods. I think we need to look at these creative parts of it. And I'm saying I'm placing the entire blame also on the shoulders of dispirited entrepreneurs. That they feel, oh, no one funded me. Couldn't express, boss. You didn't go to the right people. And why do you need funding to survive? There are exceptions, but I can't believe all of India thinks that way and every project is like that. There are things where I believe you must realize that funding is also a social debt. I think that sense of honor is gone.
Talk about that.
Sorry?
Talk about that. When you say that.
Look at, he knowingly took the risk, not my responsibility. No one thinks of it as an honor code. Everyone thinks of caveat emptor. That's the scariest part. I think the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones who think of it that way, the gratitude. Gratitude plus aptitude makes fantastic entrepreneurs, is what I believe. They have to be grateful to their stakeholders, and most of them know their primary stakeholder is their customer, but also their first backers, their second backers, the guys who believed in their mad vision. And you know why that respect is not there? Because I think none of these guys actually believe they have a mad vision.
They have a mad vision.
The entrepreneurs don't believe themselves they have a mad vision. They believe they have a calculated vision, which is a opportunistic manipulation of some foregone conclusion. That's the reason they don't see the value of that support. Had they really thought I am mad, I am abnormal, I am thinking something out of the world, they would have appreciated anyone putting in money into that, because they are confident that this is such a nifty idea and a great idea that very few people can understand it. I'm lucky I got an understanding person. That I think is a mindset difference.
I think, Sandy, it's always refreshing and great when an entrepreneur comes and is so transparent on a public forum, is open about what they think.
I hope I'm not going to be hanged for this.
Well,
I
I might lose my job.
speakers tell their opinions and be almost digitally lynched for saying it. So I hope that is not the case.
No, it's not. I mean, I might lose my job because he made fun of the VC industry, but that's all good. What I'm trying to say is that this is what we need, right? More transparent, more open discourse, and this is helpful. What was really cool for me is to hear from someone, obviously somebody that I look up to and respect, who's been there throughout the journey, right? Right from the start of the revolution of the startup ecosystem in the country to being one of India's first big ticket investments from large investors to public listings, acquisitions. I know that we haven't had time to talk about your three
public listings.
What four were they again for everyone listening?
Network 18, your geodesic, which Xelpmoc, EROT merged into, was also went public. JustDial and Xelpmoc. Don't forget Xelpmoc.
Xelpmoc, of course. So the seeing all of this, right? It's good to hear when you point out things that we should be looking to improve. Criticism.
Again, please take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. There is generation gap. There are certain things we don't get. My way or the highway is not my way of doing it. I clearly say I don't get it. I'm not going to get associated with it. Yeah. Right? But there are certain fallacies which I call out. Right? There's nothing wrong in being an opportunistic entrepreneur, as long as you don't undermine the other value systems. I don't get it. That doesn't mean I don't respect it. I respect anyone who creates employment. And that's my measure of an entrepreneur. And how much wealth did he create? And the respect is multiplied by the ratio of wealth he created, and he created for others and he created for himself.
It's funny, I say the same thing sometimes about the employment bit.
What I mean is, look at the ratio of wealth created for others divided by wealth created for himself.
Yes.
That multiplied by the jobs he's created is the value of the entrepreneur to me. Someone who's sucked in all the growth and that ratio is less than 1, obviously is not great as someone who's made it greater than 1, right?
Yeah.
So for the same number of jobs, that guy has created more wealth, impact, and has been more giving to society, and hence is more respectable. I'm not saying right, wrong. I'm not saying earning money is bad. It's just that my respect comes from that fact.
All right. Sandy, last question. I want you to think of the passionpreneur listening in. Someone who's in their journey very, very early, or like you, when you were looking to think of setting up MoneyControl, EDOT, all of that in another role, but is about to take the step or is in the middle of taking the step. Speak directly to that passionpreneur. What is your advice? What should they be thinking about? How should they navigate what is going to be the most difficult challenge of their journey?
I think first of all, I'll talk the bare facts. And the bare fact is, to be outstanding, you have to be outlasting. Survival instinct has to be at the highest. And again, the thing I keep on talking about it, the real way of having maximizing survival chances is frugality. Now, frugality is not miserliness, it's not opulence. you have to make sure you're getting the biggest lifetime value of the buck you're spending. So don't hold back spending on something which will give you a future holding. Follow your gut. But at the same time, don't go like a gambler and spend a lot of money onto that part. Don't cut corners with your own life. That is miserliness, because your own insecurity can be the biggest dampener for your startups. Sacrificing is different. Moving towards a financial or a social suicide is going to do no one any good. And have very clear demarcations of when you have to call it quits at what level. And make sure that you communicate that easily to everyone you're taking in. That if this happens, I'll have to let you go. If this happens, I'll have to let this set of people go. We'll still strive with it. The other thing is, and this is something I'm looking at as a fashion, don't think too much of designations like CEO, CFO, and all. And start delegating because you're giving yourself a particular designation. That's funny. If you need to clean your own room, fix your own tables, carry your own laptops and computers and fix it up, doing transfer and transport. May God make you move to a bigger office, bigger, and don't wait for the packers and movers, just take in your car and do it. Some of these non-frugalities really strike out. And where they do it more. But at the same time, I understand there's a lot of pressure from expectations of people you are trying to attract and all. But you have to balance it. And that's a frugality. A little bit of show and pomp maybe is necessary in today's world to attract the right talent. Otherwise, they may think too less of you and not come. But do you have to go overboard and try to impress them and they come and are visitors for 3 months? What about the guy who spent the last 3 years toiling like the hardware so that you can think of hiring the other guy? And all he wanted was a good, decent drop service. And you said, no, you take that so that I can give this part. I think that fairness is not there. We are only looking at rarity in our perception and valuing rarity. We are not valuing contribution. I see no reason why the founding team of every startup is not equally applauded and covered by the media as the entrepreneurs are. I don't want to know what is the table design of an entrepreneur. I want to know what is the desk activity like of that particular office. We talk of funding. We don't talk of the impact or user service of that particular product. So our media, our entire servicing, the things we value, the things we think are communicable. I would like to change all of that, sir. But I'm an idealist.
I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. I want everybody hearing to actually understand what a lot of those words mean. Sandy, what leaves me excited is that we discussed so much, and yet there's so much to discuss. Your work at Aadhaar, the
God
work.
save us. We
I
have
know.
so many problems, and let's keep on solving problems so we don't really have to go. See, I would rather like to have, and we talked of the current ongoing projects and the future things we're getting into.
Yeah.
I would always love such a discussion. I would never liking history much. So same here.
We'll make it happen.
Aware of the other questions of what is it that I think is right, because then I get a forum to speak my mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes in today's world, it's very difficult to get a forum to speak it. It can be wrongly construed, you could be misunderstood, or you could be willingly misinterpreted with malified intent. You never know. So you need safe zones where you at least talk with the right intent. You're talking to the person with the right intent. And then, no one can predict how our society moves these days. But at least it is not ab initio wrong.
I think you can consider this forum where we'd be very happy to have you recurring and coming and talking about all these things. Sandy, it's been such a pleasure and an honor. Yeah, thank you for taking out time. Thank you for.
You should arrange for a debate between people with contrary emotions.
Let's do
That's
it.
very important. I'm sure there will be contrarians to what I said. I'm calling myself contrarian, whatever is normative. People, I think that is what is missing, and that is very important for the startup circle. We have started believing anyone who debates with you is your enemy. That is not true, folks. Debate is the way by which both sides learn and get corrected before market slaps you and corrects. Because that's thought exchange of contrary ideas. I would love to see good debates. I would love to see sensible debates,
I
not
love
face calling debates and getting personal when you can't win with logic or don't have enough research, but really well-intentioned points of view with a little bit of contrarian view and debating and trying to say why the other person is wrong without getting personal. That balance, I think, is lacking. And if your forum can bring that thing to life, I think that will be a great contribution to startup world.
I love it. So someone who's been there and done that, listening in, reach out to us. And if you have a contrarian view, we'll set that one up. And then we'll have the first ideas to enterprise debate. And I'm super excited for that one. Sandipan, been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you so much, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Awesome.